pause. Some of the reasons he cited included the growing threat of inflation, which has only increased since September. Inflation, in fact, has now reached a 40-year high just last month. He warned about the possibility that the virus might mutate and take a new turn, and we ought to really save our powder in case we had to address either the public health or economic consequences flowing from a new variant. Well, today, all of our eyes are on the Omicron variant, and we have yet to know how that will play out. He asked how we could respond to another financial crisis like we experienced in 2008 during the Great Recession, or, heaven forbid, a terrorist attack or major international conflict. If we spend trillions of dollars on unnecessary programs today, we'll hardly have those reserves available to us should we need them. I think the questions and issues raised by the senator from West Virginia were valid then, and they're even more pressing now. Over the last several months, the winds haven't shifted in favor of this massive tax and spending bill. In fact, we now have more reasons to believe this legislation would add to, not solve, the problems that the American people are facing. The senator from West Virginia told one of our Republican colleagues that the score proposed by his own political party, $1.75 trillion, he said that score is full of gimmicks, and even acknowledged that that price tag is a form of deceptive advertising. We now have an honest score, one that acknowledges that massive programs cannot be started and stopped on a dime. And if you're really going to be honest about the cost of the bill, you need to look at a score that spans the full 10-year budget window. We now have that score, one that avoids the gimmicks that are meant to disguise the true cost of the bill. And now we can now quantify how disingenuous this so-called $1.75 trillion price tag really is. And it's about as disingenuous as the president's claim that the bill costs zero. Nobody believes that. It really undermines the president's credibility when he says something like that. The Congressional Budget Office now says this legislation, if in place for a full 10 years, would cost $4.9 trillion. That's on top of the almost $2 trillion our colleagues spent unilaterally earlier in this year. Well, that's certainly higher than the $3.5 trillion red line that Senator Manchin drew earlier this year. And it's a whole lot more than the $1.75 trillion price tag that our Democratic colleagues are claiming. And it makes the repeated claim that this bill costs zero seem even more bizarre and out of touch. Under this bill, as it's shaping up, we know deficits would increase by a staggering $3 trillion over the next decade. Now, last year, when we passed COVID-19 relief bills with huge bipartisan majorities, we did so because it was a public health emergency and an economic emergency, and we did it together. But on top of all that necessary spending, our colleagues are insisting on spending another $4.9 trillion, adding another $3 trillion to the debt over the next decade. Our children and grandchildren would never have a chance to dig out of the hole that our Democratic colleagues are now drilling. This legislation doesn't just fall short of solving problems, it actually makes them worse. This bill would fuel the red-hot inflation that's already burning up the paychecks of the American people. People who are on fixed income are finding their purchasing power shrinking by the day because of the threat of inflation. We know this bill would also hurt our energy security. It would give massive tax breaks to the wealthy while increasing taxes on the middle class. It would literally cut funding for safety net hospitals and drive the national debt to unimaginable heights. And finally, and maybe most importantly, it would hand to the federal government decisions that should be made by families. I hope our colleague from West Virginia will continue to hold strong against the dangers of this bill. At minimum, we need to tap the brakes and take what he called a strategic pause. And so it seems that the Democratic leader is on track to miss yet another deadline. For the country's sake, I hope this bill does not arrive after Christmas. I hope it never comes at all. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Senator from Ohio.
Consent that Will Sheehan, a fellow in my office, be granted floor privileges for the remainder of the 117th Congress.
Without objection.
Thank you. I appreciate my friend from Texas and his comments. I had trouble following some of them. When he comes to the floor after, he deserved credit for the Trump 2017-18 tax cut for the rich. 70% of the benefits went to the 1%. He did take credit for his work in the Finance Committee. He should take credit for that. But that's what drove this hole in the deficit where the rich got richer. And I remember during that, you remember, I mean, you were not here at the time, Mr. President, but you can still see it here. You can look out the window and you can see Senator McConnell's office there and the lobbyists lined up. You should have seen them back when Senator Cornyn was talking about this tax cut for the rich, where they made these promises. We're going to if you give tax cuts to really rich people and corporations, it'll trickle down and we'll all do better. They'll hire more people and they'll raise wages. Well, we know what they did. In fact, just announced another round of it, a whole bunch of stock buybacks for the executives. So we know what's happened during those years, that profits went up for corporations, the stock market soared, executive compensation exploded through the roof, and wages for most people in Mansfield, Georgia, and Mansfield, Ohio, and Marietta, Georgia, and Marietta, Ohio stayed flat. We know that. That's why Build Back Better makes sense. It begins to put money in people's pockets. And what my friend from Texas, and we sit across from each other in the Finance Committee and work together on some issues, and I appreciate what he's done in CFIUS and some other bills, but what he didn't explain is why every one of them opposes the child tax credit. We know the child tax credit. We know a number of things. I've been working on this since 2013. It started with not a lot of support, built huge support by this year, early this year. Sitting at this desk on March 6th, I voted, as did the presiding officer from Georgia, and the first really big vote he cast as a member of the Senate in the majority, voted for the child tax credit. Every single, two different times, every single Republican voted no, every single Democrat voted yes. You know what that meant? It meant that starting on March 6th, starting in July when we got it set up, that 90% of the families of Georgia, 90% of the families in Ohio who have children under the age of 18 got at least a $3,000 a year tax cut. Think about that. Families that struggle with paying the rent. 25% of renters in this country before the pandemic paid more than half their income in rent. Think of the pressure those families are under at the end of every month to cobble together $700 to pay their rent. They get a $3,000 tax cut. The family that's struggling to pay for diapers or child care, especially the cost of child care has exploded, whether it's Metro Atlanta or Metro Columbus, Ohio, whether it's small town Milledgeville or small town Shelby, Ohio, families struggle with child care. And this $300 a month per child, or $250 depending on the age of the children, makes a huge difference in those families. One father said, I can, for the first time, I have money now to buy my daughter fast pitch softball equipment. A mother said to me, I have money now. For the first time, I can send my son for a week to summer camp, and school supplies in the fall. And as I said, diapers and other expenses for infants makes all the difference in the world. We know there are a few things. I expect the presiding officer, I hope, has a long career in this body. I don't know if he'll ever get the opportunity to vote on anything as big as what we did in March with the Recovery Act and what we're about to do with Build Back Better. For me, they're the highlights of my career. I hope the presiding officer has a lot of years in front of him, but this is the most consequential thing this Congress has done. Not just to fight poverty, to lift poor kids, struggling parents that are working so hard to raise kids and balance 2 jobs and all that. Not just to help kids get out of poverty, but to make life easier. 90% of the families, as I said, 90% of the families who have children under 18 in Georgia and Ohio and every state in between are going to get a $3,000 a year tax cut. And that alone is so important. And I wish my colleague from Texas would address why they all vote no. They've had 2 chances. It sounds like they're going to take their 3rd chance and vote no again. I don't understand it. Is it the lobbyists that line up at Senator McConnell's office? Is it some weird philosophy that markets always know better? Is it just that they don't really care about helping kids? I don't know what their logic is. I just know that what our logic is, and it will make our country better. Mr. President, I asked to place the following remarks at a different place in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to honor a member of my staff who's been such a valuable part of our office, Alyssa Brockington. She's done such, and she's joining us in the chamber today, she's done such important work on health care, on economic justice. She's moving on to a new opportunity, again, to fight for a lot of the people that we fight for in our office, and she's moving on at the end of the year. She's been with our office for 5 years, working to expand access to health care for Ohioans, for people around the country, to bring down drug prices and health care costs. One of the major goals of Build Back Better. She's worked to make sure that not only can families afford to see a doctor, but that the care they get actually makes them healthier and serves their needs. We know that so often that isn't the case for too many people, especially the most vulnerable. Last year, Ms. Brockington led efforts in the Senate with me to introduce a resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. And this is an effort. What I love about this effort, the first place it really kind of happened, it started at the community level in Hamilton County, Ohio, Cincinnati area. Other communities in the state began to pass resolutions to declare racism a public health crisis. She worked with leaders, she worked with advocates in these communities, she worked with organizations like the National Urban League and the YWCA, other Senate offices to introduce our resolution. It acknowledges the systemic barriers that people of color, especially Black Americans, continue to face in our healthcare system. The first step to solving this problem is recognizing its existence and understanding it. Some of us in this chamber have read the 1619 Project. It's just come out. It came out of a New York Times very lengthy, very detailed series of articles. This is what Ms. Brockington is helping to address some of these endemic problems we face. She's always pushed our office to recognize the issues and the people that too often get overlooked in this town. Ms. Brockington led efforts in our office to work to prevent maternal mortality, working on bills like the Healthy Moms Act and the Supporting Best Practice for Healthy Moms Act. Mothers especially, we know, especially young mothers of color, are dying at an alarming rate in this country. It's pretty unbelievable that so many women still die in childbirth in the richest country in the world. We have the best health care, to be sure, but it doesn't, let's say, trickle down to everybody in this country. Despite having the best hospitals, the best doctors in the world, deaths are going up, not down. The legislation Alyssa's championed would help expand coverage option for pregnant mothers so they can get the care they need to have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies. Thanks to hard work and thanks to my colleague and my friend, Senator Wyden, we included a provision from the Healthy Mom Act that would provide postpartum women with 12 months of Medicaid coverage in the Build Back Better bill. I mean, think about that. These women now who give birth will have 12-month Medicaid coverage. What that can mean, actually having insurance, not having to worry as your colicky baby at several weeks old is keeping you awake at night and suffering, and you're thinking also in your mind, how am I going to pay if I take her to the doctor? How am I going to pay? How am I going to afford this coverage? This does that. Another major contribution Alyssa's made to our office is her leadership in forming and guiding our Economic Justice Task Force. Economic justice is central to everything we do for the people of Ohio. I would notice, and I know I'm not allowed to wear this on the floor, so I'll just hold it up if that doesn't violate the rules. I met briefly with one of the workers that makes food in this building. and they just joined and formed Local 23 of Unite Here. What that's going to mean for her life, what that's going to mean for workers, that they have somebody now representing them, bargaining better wages, better benefits. We know the cafeteria workers here, the people who work to serve us, were making as little as $11 and $12 an hour. This economic justice task force will mean our office will do better to engage communities that are overlooked, to discuss and champion issues that are central to Ohio communities and to the workers here and all over the country. Communities that don't often have much of a voice in government. She's been the driving force behind this task force for 2 full years now, organizing meetings, facilitating discussions, encouraging colleagues to get involved and speak up. She coordinates with other staff, she plans quarterly events, she circulates ideas for feedback. One colleague said, all around, she's so inclusive and empathetic. And you want, as you work in this job and work in these jobs, having staff that's kind and inclusive and empathetic is sort of everything, because they will treat the citizens of Alaska or Georgia, of Ohio with that empathy and with that kindness. She's been that kind of asset to our office and to our work for the people of Ohio. We'll miss her dearly. I know she'll continue to do wonderful things to ensure more Americans get the compassionate and affordable and effective health care they need. I'm excited. We hate to lose her, but we like her next challenge, and we're excited to see how far she'll go. Thank you, Alyssa, for your service to Ohio and to our country. We will miss you. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Alaska.
Mr. President, I want to come down to the Senate floor and commend a number of senators, but I want to particularly commend the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Senator Reid, and the ranking member, Senator Inhofe, and their staff, and all the staff on the Armed Services Committee for the exceptional work they have done over the last several months to produce the strong National Defense Authorization Act that just passed in a very strong bipartisan vote here on the floor of the United States Senate. That vote, Mr. President, was 88-11, and I think it's a prime example of something that I mention a lot back home, is that there's a lot more bipartisan work that gets done here in the Senate than is often recognized, and there's nothing more important than having senators from both sides of the aisle come together with regard to national defense and supporting our troops and their families. We've been doing that over 60 years in a row, where we have passed the National Defense Authorization Act, one of the most important bills that comes to the floor of the Senate and the House and the Congress, and once again, we've passed it. And I think Chairman Reid and Senator Inhofe, Ranking Member Inhofe, deserve a lot of the credit. So, Mr. President, I just want to touch on a couple of the key provisions here, a lot of what's in it, and then mention a few things. A lot of times it's important to recognize actually what's not in a bill, because that can be just as important as what's in it. But I would start with the number one issue here, and it's the top-line budget increase for the Department of Defense. I have been outspoken on the disappointment and damage that President Biden's budget that he proposed with regard to the Pentagon, supported unfortunately by many here, the majority leader, the budget chairman, that was unacceptable. Unacceptable. Why was it unacceptable? Because our nation's facing many threats right now. Just read the paper every day, China, Russia, Iran, and yet that budget was actually provided by the White House was a cut, a pretty dramatic cut if you look at it as adjusted for inflation. Mr. President, the Armed Services Committee and in the Senate and in the House thoroughly rejected the Biden budget to cut defense spending. We have in this bill a 3% real increase. That's a little over $25 billion. And in the committee, when this amendment, which I co-sponsored with Senator Inhofe and others to increase our defense spending, when it came to a vote in the committee, every senator on the Armed Services Committee voted for it with the exception of one. That's about as bipartisan as it gets. So many important things in this bill in terms of the significant increase to the top-line budget. But readiness, in my view, of our military is one of the most important things we do here as U.S. senators. And now is certainly not the time to cut defense spending. And I think today's vote was a strong bipartisan showing that this body does not agree with the Biden budget. And that was one really important aspect of today's NDAA. Second, Mr. President, I want to talk a little bit about the great state of Alaska and its role in our military and some of the provisions in this bill that relate to Arctic security. I like to say that Alaska constitutes three pillars of America's military might. We are the cornerstone of missile defense. Almost all the radar systems and all the ground-based missile interceptors protecting the whole country are located in Alaska. We are the hub of air combat power for the Arctic and Asia Pacific. By the end of this year, we will have over 100 fifth-generation fighters, combat-coded fifth-gen fighters, that's F-35s, F-22s, stationed in Alaska, over 100. There's no place on the planet Earth that has over 100 fifth-generation fighters. Supersonic stealth, can get anywhere, very quickly, Russia, China, Taiwan. And that's another area of Alaska's pillars of military might. And finally, we are a platform for expeditionary forces, the 425, the only airborne brigade combat team in the entire Asia Pacific, the 1st Stryker Brigade, many others that can get to places all over the world because of our strategic location very quickly, and also because of our strategic airlift in Alaska. But, Mr. President, this NDAA is going to add another element of Alaska's military might to our nation, and that is the center of gravity for America's Arctic security operations. Last year in the NDAA, we were able to get the first and only and much needed Department of Defense Center for Arctic Security. The Department of Defense named it the Ted Stevens, after the great late senator, Center for Arctic Security. It's going to be in Anchorage, Alaska. And now, in this year's NDAA, we have what's called the Arctic Security Initiative. I was honored to co-sponsor that with my good friend Senator King from Maine. And this gets the Pentagon to focus on a 5-year strengthening of our national security in the Arctic region. As you know, Mr. President, that is becoming an area of great power competition, and America has very strong strategic national security, economic security interests in the Arctic, and this NDAA will cement not just the Arctic as an important national security imperative of our country, but Alaska is the focal point for Arctic security endeavors for the United States and our allies. Mr. President, the other element here in the NDAA, which is so important, of course, is taking care of our troops and their families. It authorizes, this bill, a pay raise of almost 3% for both military members and Department of Defense civilians. It has numerous initiatives relating to military health and housing and leave policies. And one that I was proud to get into this bill is an important provision that allows the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration to do facility sharing. What does that mean? It enables both the Pentagon and the VA to work on agreements to plan, design, construct facilities to operate as VA and DoD shared medical facilities. That's going to help with readiness. That's going to help train our young active duty medical forces. It's going to help with taking care of our veterans, and it's going to save money. These are the kind of provisions that we need They're win-win-win between the VA and our veterans and the active duty and reserve forces that also need health care, and we're looking forward to take advantage of that in Alaska and other places in the country. You know, Mr. President, as I said at the outset, oftentimes what's not in a bill is as important as what's in a bill. And some of our members, some of the far-left members of the House, tried to plug into the NDAA, and they did so over in the House, a number of bills that really didn't have a lot to do with the military, but they were trying to move forward on a far-left agenda that they tried to attach in the NDAA. Ironically, many of these members really have no intention of ever voting for a strong NDAA, but they try to plug things in the House bill. They did that in the House bill, but we were able to get rid of pretty much all of those. Again, things like red flag laws that would confiscate firearms without due process. Another provision that I'm really glad was not in there. There has been this narrative on the far left that somehow the men and women of our military, that our military institutions are filled with a bunch of extremists. There's news reports that say this. None of it is based on data. None of it is based on data. And I've been pressing officials saying, give me data. You make these charges, which I dislike, happen to know many, many members of the military. They're some of the finest people in the country. So we were able to get rid of some of the provisions in the House bill that was going to set up an office in the Pentagon on essentially trying to, in my view, do witch hunts on so-called extremists. It's an issue that the Pentagon needs to come out with data on and not make these false charges. So overall, Mr. President, this is a good day for our troops, for their families, for the Senate, a very bipartisan bill, people coming together, Democrats and Republicans on, in my view, one of the most important issues, if not the most important issue we deal with here in the Congress, the national security of our nation, keeping a strong, lethal military. And when we do that, like we did today, that also sends a message to our adversaries. The United States, despite some challenges, still has the best, most lethal military force in the world, the most professional military force in the world, and this bill is going to help enhance that, and our adversaries need to take notice. I yield the floor.
Senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, I'm really pleased to be on the floor this afternoon with my friend and colleague, Senator Rob Portman, to talk about an issue that we have been working on literally for a decade. And it's been a bipartisan effort to focus on energy efficiency as a response to the energy needs in this country. In 2011, Senator Portman and I introduced S-1000, which was the first version of the Energy Savings and Industrial Competitiveness Act. Over the years, it's been known as Shaheen-Portman when we were in the majority on the Democratic side, or Portman-Shaheen when the Republicans were in the majority. But it doesn't matter what you call it. Our bill has proposed substantial investments in energy efficiency in this country. And what we did in the bill was to focus on the most energy-intensive sectors in our economy, so buildings, residential and commercial, which is about a third of our energy use, the industrial sector, and the federal government. And in the United States, the biggest user of energy is the federal government. In a Congress that's divided along partisan lines on so many issues, energy efficiency is one priority that can bring us together on a bipartisan, bicameral basis to get things done. I always like to say that energy efficiency is one of those energy sources that you can support whether you're from New England or Ohio or Wyoming, whether you support oil and gas or wind and solar. Energy efficiency is the fastest, cheapest way to meet our energy needs. Our legislation has always focused on low-cost tools and adoption of off-the-shelf technologies to save money for consumers and businesses, to make America more energy independent, and to reduce emissions. And over the years, over the last decade, we've had some big wins. In 2015, President Obama signed a targeted version of Shaheen-Portman, the Energy Efficiency Improvement Act, into law. That bill helped align the interests of commercial building owners and their tenants to reduce energy consumption, and it allowed certain water heaters to help with demand response programs in rural areas. Now, we've also made great strides through annual appropriations and administrative actions on things like energy efficiency standards for appliances. Of course, we've also had some real defeats. But though frustrating those defeats were, our resolve on this bill has never wavered. And when we reintroduced Portman-Shaheen last Congress, we worked to again incorporate feedback from stakeholders. For 7 months, our staffs held back-to-back meetings with constituents, stakeholders, and committee staff to ensure the bill addressed the energy needs in New Hampshire, Ohio, and the rest of the country. Improving the efficiency of residential and commercial buildings through energy-saving building codes remains central to our bill, as did industrial energy efficiency provisions and improvements to federal energy efficiency programs. We also again included energy efficiency bills from our colleagues. So in that piece of legislation, we included Senators Murkowski and Manchin's Federal Energy and Water Management Performance Act. We included Senators Hoeven and Manchin's All of the Above Federal Building Energy Conservation Act. And we included Senator Collins and Warner's legislation coordinating energy retrofitting for schools. Finally, as part of that, we included Senator Bennett and Senator Isaacson's Sensible Accounting to Value Energy Act, or the SAVE Act. So there were a lot of reasons why a number of members of this body were interested in that legislation. But it was also a real savings, because according to the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, the policies from that bill would save consumers over $51 billion on their energy bills. It would reduce carbon emissions by 1.3 billion metric tons, which is the equivalent of taking 280 million cars off the road for a year, and it would save 32 quadrillion BTUs of energy, which is nearly the total energy use of all U.S. industries for 1 year. Now, a previous study from ACEEE also estimated that the legislation would add more than 100,000 jobs to the economy. That bill passed the Energy Committee by a vote of 14-6, and it was the fifth time the bill passed in committee on a bipartisan basis. Now, I'm proud to say that the Energy Policy Act of 2020 that was signed into law by President Trump at the end of last year had several provisions from that Shaheen-Portman legislation that would streamline efficiency for schools, increase energy efficiency for federal data centers, and provide rebates for energy-efficient electric motors and transformers, and support federal energy efficiency programs. But, of course, the piece of that bill that was left on the cutting room floor were the voluntary building codes, where so much of the savings was really incorporated. But despite the success and the defeat in the last Congress, we came into this year as determined as ever. And as part of the original Gang of 10, Senator Portman and I teamed up to ensure that energy efficiency was a big part of the bipartisan infrastructure framework. We worked with Senator Manchin and our bipartisan colleagues to incorporate much of Shaheen-Portman with funding in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And I'm going to turn it over to Senator Portman for a few minutes so my voice can recover, and then I will pick it up when he finishes.
Mr. President.
Senator from Ohio.
Well, first of all, it's great to be on the floor with my friend Jeanne Shaheen and talk about something positive, something that we've been able to accomplish over the years. As she said, we've been at this over a decade, which is to encourage more energy efficiency. This is the ability for us to save energy by not using it. It's therefore sort of energy found. It's also an ability to improve the economy because it creates more jobs and makes us more competitive globally by having lower energy costs. Think about the businesses in your state. The competitive nature of business today is that you're really competing with the Europeans and the Japanese and the Chinese and so on And if you have higher energy costs and you're not energy efficient, you're not going to be competitive. But if you're competitive, it adds jobs, makes the economy stronger. So the way I look at it, if you're interested in lower emissions and a better environment, and at the same time you're interested in a better economy and creating jobs, then energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit. That's the thing we can all agree with. And I applaud Senator Shaheen because she's been patient. We've both been patient, as our staff has been over the years, in getting pieces of our legislation in various bills that have passed this United States Senate and the House of Representatives and signed into law by President Obama, President Trump, and now President Biden. The most recent one was the infrastructure bill. And it's exciting what we were able to get in there in terms of encouraging a better, more sustainable use of our energy resources in both the public sector and in the private sector. Importantly, energy efficiency is also an important part of a more reliable and resilient grid, which was part of our legislation, improving the electrical grid. We've had some pretty severe weather events over the last year. As you know, I was just in Kentucky over the weekend, my neighboring state, helping out on the cleanup there. And boy, electricity was out everywhere. By improving energy efficiency, we can reduce demand, taking pressure off our power grids, and help create more stability. These are some of the reasons why, since 2011, we've worked together to promote this energy efficiency bill called the Energy Savings and Industrial Competitiveness Act. Senator Shaheen called it Portman-Shaheen. I call it Shaheen-Portman because she's in charge now. The Senate is in the Democrats' majority, not ours. But we've worked together seamlessly. It's really been nonpartisan. And again, our goal has been really three different areas. One, residential and commercial buildings, because that's where we use a lot of energy. About 40% of the energy used in this country is used there. Also, to ensure that the federal government does a better job. You know, the federal government uses more energy than any other entity in the entire economy. By the way, uses more energy than anybody in the world, and they don't do it very efficiently. In fact, there's a lot of energy inefficiency in our federal government. So practice what you preach, right? So you have the government telling everybody else they've got to be green, but the government itself is not green. So our legislation requires that the federal government take steps to make it more energy efficient as well. And then finally, the manufacturing sector. Here's where there's a great opportunity, and manufacturers are really excited about it because we can provide some incentives, some best practices, and so on to make them more competitive globally by improving their energy efficiency. We've created a big tent through this process, joining forces with our colleagues over the years for the purpose of supporting these kind of common sense energy efficiency measures. A number of senators have had important parts of our legislation. That includes Senator Wicker, Senator Bennett, Senator Collins, Senator Manchin, Senator Hoeven, and others, Senator Murkowski. Our legislation has been voted on by this body before. In 2016, it passed the United States Senate. It also passed out of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee 5 separate times with bipartisan support. By the way, in 2016, the vote was 85-12. Now, it's part of a larger energy package, but that was a pretty strong sign of bipartisan support for this. And it improved energy efficiency, in that case, in leased office space, and improved energy savings from water heaters, as an example. However, we've long recognized we need to do more to be able to save energy and save money. According to the U.S. Information Agency, Energy Information Administration, residential and commercial buildings accounted for 40% of total energy consumption. In addition, reports from the U.S. Department of Energy have found the federal government, again, is the single largest energy consumer in the country. And those studies have shown that our legislation as a whole would save consumers $51 billion on energy bills, reduce carbon emissions by 1.3 billion tons, not by hurting jobs, but by creating more jobs, because it would add more than 100,000 jobs to the economy. Over the years, the legislation has gained the support of industry, such as the National Association of Manufacturers, American Chemistry Council, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It has support of commercial and real estate developers, like BOMA and the Real Estate Roundtable, as well as from efficiency advocates and the environmental community, like the Alliance to Save Energy, called ACEEE. There's not a lot in Washington these days that has such a broad group of stakeholders supporting it. But there's a reason this legislation has received such broad support. It reduces emissions by reducing energy consumption. It also creates new jobs and lowers energy bills for consumers. And it does all this without putting any new mandates on the private sector. Particularly now, at a time of record inflation and rising energy costs, investing in improving energy efficiency is a smart way to help support hardworking families in Ohio and around the country. The good news is that now, with the bipartisan infrastructure bill signed into law, we are much closer to seeing the benefits for the American people become a reality. The infrastructure bill, which we co-authored along with a bunch of our colleagues, included a total of $2.5 billion for various energy efficiency projects. Included in these critical investments are a number of our provisions from Shaheen-Portman. For example, we were able to include and fund programs to help incentivize contractors, home builders, and others to adapt and implement updated building codes. We were also able to fund programs that help career skill development, to help us train a workforce able to develop and install important new energy efficiency technologies. That's been one of our challenges. For example, we include funding to enhance the Industrial Assessment Centers program at the Department of Energy. This program allows students from around the country to conduct energy assessments and small and medium-sized manufacturers to improve their competitiveness, reduce waste, save energy, while at the same time training students in the field. By the way, it's these kinds of small changes and upgrades that can result in big emissions and cost savings for businesses all around the country. So I'm truly proud of what we've accomplished, including in the infrastructure bill most recently. And again, I want to thank my colleague, Senator Shaheen, for her tireless work to get this legislation across the finish line. Again, energy efficiency, the low-hanging fruit. I look forward to continuing our partnership on these important issues.
Mr. President.
Senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, I thank my colleague and partner in this effort, Senator Portman, and as he pointed out, on November 15th, President Biden became the third president to sign energy efficiency provisions from our bill into law. Now, we still have a lot of work to do, but I just want to recognize current and former Shaheen-Portman staff who have helped us shepherd this bill through its many obstacles. From my staff, I want to thank Trent Bowserman, Robert Disnoff, Errol Marshall, Drew Story, and Janelle DeLucia. From Senator Portman's staff, I want to thank Pam Thiessen, Steve Kittredge, Pat Orth, Sarah Perry, Lydia Dennis, and I would like to ask unanimous consent to enter the names of these current and former staff into the record.
Without objection.
Finally, I want to thank the chairs and ranking members of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee who played such a pivotal role over the years, Senators Manchin, Murkowski, Cantwell, and Wyden, and their staffs. Senator Portman talked about all of the various groups who have been involved in helping to move this legislation where we are today. So I won't go back over those, but I will say again, energy efficiency is a win-win-win. It creates jobs, it reduces costs to consumers, and it lowers emissions. And as our economy recovers and grows, the investments in energy efficiency from our bipartisan infrastructure package are going to make sure that we use energy smarter. And I'm going to continue to partner with Senator Portman and others so we can unlock the full potential of energy efficiency for our growing economy. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to speak as if in morning business for such time as I shall consume.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. I think with Christmas right around the corner, I can't think of a more appropriate time to deliver a short message here. You know, I've spoken several times about the situation in Ethiopia this year. It's a nation that's close to my heart for a lot of good reasons, close to a lot of other hearts around here. And if you're trying to understand the politics behind what's happening on the ground, it's very complicated. But what is not complicated is that human suffering happens and is heartbreaking. We're talking about women and children, and the elderly, people, and they're dying every day. And it's totally unnecessary. I pray the violence stops very quickly and call on those who feel to join me if they agree with this. One of my big criticisms of our State Department is that they tend to go around the world telling other countries what they need to do instead of focusing on building lasting friendships and alliances. This pushes countries away from us instead of bringing them toward us. And we can't afford to do that anymore with the rising problems that we're having right now. We've been talking on the floor with both China and Russia. And those countries are all too eager to pick up the pieces that we leave behind. And this is happening right now. We're faced with a situation where we have countries that are out there that have actually better resources than we do. in many areas. And unfortunately, this is exactly what the Biden administration is doing in Ethiopia, because Ethiopia has been unable to resolve its internal challenges quick enough for the administration. They're punishing Ethiopia. They're really punishing the wrong people here. Most recently, this has been in the form of announcing that they plan to remove Ethiopia from the African Growth and Opportunity Act. The African Growth and Opportunity Act is known as AGOA, and it's something that's very significant. It's one that all those in Africa and other countries they're trying to get behind them. And I think it's particularly significant right now that Christmas is upon us. It means that Ethiopia will no longer have preferential trade capabilities with the United States for both import and export. Now, this is devastating to a nation that's been such a great partner over the years. Ethiopia has always, ever since it came back during the Meles administration, and we kicked communists out with the help of that administration. It's been our friend ever since then. Ethiopia has long been one of our last trading partners in Africa, in part because its airline has a majority of Boeing fleet, and because of that, many planes across the continent are being maintained in Ethiopia. This flippant action makes our other partners doubt our commitment and pulls the rug out from under many American businesses that have decided to make investments in Ethiopia instead of other countries in places around the world like Southeast Asia. If we're willing to arbitrarily kick countries out of the agreement, other countries and American companies might not see participation in AGOA as worth the hassle you have to go through to get that. Every time we do something like this, we leave a vacuum that China only is too eager to fulfill. Just after the Biden administration announced their plan to punish Ethiopia, the Chinese government announced their own plan to purchase $300 billion worth of goods from Africa over the next 3 years and to invest nearly $10 billion. Now, the Chinese foreign minister promptly visited the principals in Ethiopia to support Prime Minister Abiy. Now, Prime Minister Abiy, we might remember, has been a prime minister in Ethiopia for a long period of time. I can remember standing many years ago on this floor and lauding the virtues of him and what he has done for this country, and the fact that he is could be arguably the best educated prime minister in that country at any time. He didn't mention a word about the international challenges that he faces. They were there to support him democratically. We're talking about the Chinese now. Democratically elected leader in Ethiopia. That's exactly what we should be doing, but we aren't. China is. We know that China and Russia are encroaching through Africa. They want nothing more than to create a division between the United States and Ethiopia and in countries across the continent. And the good news is, if you can call it that, there is time before the Biden administration cancels AGOA benefits, and that would be for Ethiopia on January 1st. But the door is closing, and January 1st is on us now. So the Biden administration should take real steps to undoing the sanctions against the democratically elected government of Ethiopia and roll back the termination of AGOA benefits. And that would make a much happier Christmas for us and for Ethiopia. And with that, I yield the floor. I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin. President.
The majority leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 528.
The question is on the measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, United States Agency for International Development, Atul Atmaram Gawande of Massachusetts to be an assistant administrator.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 528, Atul Atmaram Gawande of Massachusetts to be an Assistant Administrator of the United States Agency for International Development, signed by 17 senators.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 577.
The question is on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Linda Lopez of California to be United States District Judge for the Southern District of California.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 577, Linda Lopez of California to be United States District Judge for the Southern District of California, signed by 19 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion's agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 579.
The question's on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion's agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Jen Segota of California to be United States District Judge for the Southern District of California.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 579, Jen Segota of California, to be United States District Judge for the Southern District of California, signed by 19 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived. I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 580.
The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, David Herrera Urias of New Mexico to be United States District Judge for the District of New Mexico.
The clerk
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 580, David to be United States District Judge for the District of New Mexico, signed by 17 senators.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 574.
The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Maame Alyssa Frimpong of California to be United States District Judge for the Central District of California.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close the debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 574, Maame Alyssa Frimpong of California to be United States District Judge for the Central District of California, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 487.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Jane M. Beckering of Michigan to be United States District Judge for the Western District of Michigan.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 487, Jane M. Beckering of Michigan to be United States District Judge for the Western District of Michigan, signed by 16 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 488.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Shalina D. Kumar of Michigan to be United States District Judge for the Eastern District of Michigan.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 488, Shalina D. Kumar of Michigan, to be United States District Judge for the Eastern District of Michigan, signed by 16 senators as follows.
I send a cloture motion to the desk. I ask unanimous consent the reading of the names be waived. I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive calendar session to consider calendar 575.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Jennifer L. Thurston of California to be United States District Judge for the Eastern District of California.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 575, Jennifer L. Thurston of California, to be United States District Judge for the Eastern District of California, signed by 19 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 578.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Catherine Marie Menendez of Minnesota to be United States District Judge for the District of Minnesota.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 578, Catherine Marie Menendez of Minnesota to be United States District Judge for the District of Minnesota, signed by 19 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
Question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider Calendar 573.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Mary Catherine Dimke of Washington to be United States District Judge for the Eastern District of Washington.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar 573, Mary Catherine Dimke of Washington, to be United States District Judge for the Eastern District of Washington, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider Calendar 519.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Alyssa Reynosa Pantaleon of New York to be Ambassador of the United States of America to the Kingdom of Spain and to serve concurrently as Ambassador of the United States of America to the Principality of Andorra.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report.
We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 519, Alyssa Reynosa Pantaleon of New York to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the Kingdom of Spain and to serve concurrently and without additional compensation as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the Principality of Andorra, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider Calendar 526.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Rahm Emanuel of Illinois to be Ambassador of the United States of America to Japan.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 526, Rahm Emanuel of Illinois to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to Japan, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider Calendar 446.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Jack A. Markle of Delaware to be Representative of the United States of America to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development.
I send the cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 446, Jack A. Markle of Delaware to be Representative of the United States of America to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development with the rank of Ambassador, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 442.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Bathsheba Nell Crocker of the District of Columbia to be representative of the United States of America to the Office of the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva.
Send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 442, Bathsheba Nell Crocker of the District of Columbia, to be representative of the United States of America to the Office of the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent that the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 454.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And the motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Mark Gittenstein of Washington to be representative of the United States of America to the European Union.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 454, Mark Gittenstein of Washington, to be representative of the United States of America to the European Union with the rank and status of Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 447.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Denise Campbell Bauer of California to be Ambassador of the United States of America to the French Republic and to serve concurrently as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the Principality of Monaco.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close the debate on nomination of Executive Calendar 447, Denise Campbell Bauer of California, to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the French Republic, and to serve concurrently and without additional compensation as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the Principality of Monaco, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 525.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, R. Nicholas Burns of Massachusetts to be Ambassador of the United States of America to the People's Republic of China.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 525, R. Nicholas Burns of Massachusetts, to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the People's Republic of China, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 440.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Claire D. Cronin of Massachusetts to be Ambassador of the United States of America to Ireland.
I send the cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned
consent to
senators,
let
in
him
accordance
have it.
with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 440, Claire D. Cronin of Massachusetts to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to Ireland, signed by 17 senators as
I
follows.
ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 323.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, United States Agency for International Development, Marcella Escobari of Massachusetts to be an Assistant Administrator.
I send the cloture motion to the desk.
Clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 323, Marcella Escobari of Massachusetts to be an Assistant Administrator of the United States Agency for International Development, signed by 18 senators as follows.
And the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 317.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Mark Evans Napper of California to be Ambassador of the United States of America to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam.
I send the cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 317, Mark Evans Napper of California, to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 320.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of State, Rufus Gifford of Massachusetts to be Chief of Protocol.
I send the cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 320, Rufus Gifford of Massachusetts, to be Chief of Protocol and to have the rank of Ambassador during his tenure of service, signed by 17 senators as follows.
Unanimous consent, the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
And finally, number 22, I move to proceed to legislative session.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 572.
The question is on the motion to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Gabriel P. Sanchez of California to be United States Circuit Judge for the Ninth Circuit.
I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 572, Gabriel P. Sanchez of California, to be United States Circuit Judge for the Ninth Circuit, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the mandatory quorum calls for the cloture motions filed today, December 15th, be waived.
Without objection.
I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
No, but why don't we change?
The Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the following nominations on block, 539, 540, that the Senate vote on the nominations on block without intervening action or debate. The motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate. Then any statements related to the nominations be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Without objection.
Question.
The question occurs on the nominations on block. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The nominations are confirmed on block.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to legislative session, being a period of morning business, with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of H. Con Res 64, which was received from the House.
The clerk will report.
H. Con Res 64, directing the Secretary of the Senate to make a correction in the enrollment of the bill as 1605.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that concurrent resolution be agreed to. The motion be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to immediate consideration of H.R. 5545, which was received from the House and is at the desk.
The clerk will report.
H.R. 5545, an act to extend certain expiring provisions of law relating to benefits provided under Department of Veterans Affairs educational assistance programs during COVID-19 pandemic and for other purposes.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent the bill be considered read a third time.
Without objection.
I know of no further debate on the bill.
If there's no further debate, the question is on passage of the bill. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill was passed.
I ask unanimous consent that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee be discharged from further consideration. The Senate now proceed to S 1404.
The clerk will report.
S 1404, a bill to award a Congressional Gold Medal to the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops and the 3133rd Middle Service Company in recognition of a unique and distinguished service as a ghost army that conducted deception operations in Europe during World War II.
Without objection, the committee is discharged and will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that the marquee substitute amendment at the desk be considered and agreed to, that the bill as amended be considered read a third time and passed, the marquee amendment to the title be considered and agreed to, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
And finally, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today, it adjourn until 10 a.m. Thursday, December 16, that following the prayer and the pledge, the morning hour be deemed expired, the journal proceedings be approved today, the time for the two leaders be reserved for their use later in the day, and the morning business be closed, that upon conclusion of morning business, the Senate proceed to executive session, resume consideration of the Gowandi nomination. Further, that the Senate recess from 1 p.m. until 2 p.m.
Without objection.
To get the information of senators, we expect to move to discharge the Thomas nomination for the Ninth Circuit during Thursday's session. If there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it stand adjourned under the previous order.
The Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.